Today, we're talking about a system that keeps your food safe. And you know what? It all started with a mission to space. It's called HACCP, and it's pretty much the invisible guardian behind almost every single safe meal you eat. So, picture this. It's the 1960s. NASA goes to the Pillsbury Company with a pretty huge challenge. I mean, think about it. How do you make sure food is 100% safe to eat in outer space? Getting food poisoning in orbit? Yeah, that's not an option. You can't just pull over to the nearest hospital, right? So NASA needed a system that could guarantee food was as close to perfect as humanly possible.
Well, the folks at Pillsbury pretty quickly realized that just testing the final product, that wasn't going to cut it. You can't just wait until the end and hope for the best. To really guarantee safety, they figured out they had to control the entire process from the very beginning to the very end. And this shift in thinking, from reacting to problems to preventing them, that was the real game changer. It's what evolved into the system we use all over the world today.
Okay, so what is this thing, HACCP? Well, it stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. And really, at its heart, you can just think of it as this proactive, scientific shield for our food supply. Its whole job is to stop safety problems before they even have a chance to get started. All right, so how does this whole space-age system actually work on the ground? We're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at how you assemble the plan. Then, we'll dive into finding those critical hazards. After that, it's all about maintaining control. And finally, we'll touch on the huge impact this has on all of us. Okay, phase 1. First things first, right? Before you can even think about hunting for hazards, you've got to do the prep work. This whole initial phase is basically about getting your mission control team assembled and making sure your map is perfectly in order. So the whole process kicks off with these 5 foundational tasks. You start by assembling the right team of experts. Then you have to get super clear on what the product actually is and who's going to be eating it. And then, and this is key, you have to map out every single step of production in what's called a flow diagram. And then you have to go and confirm that diagram on site, no shortcuts. And that team, it's absolutely critical. You can't just have one person doing this. You need people with all kinds of skills to see the whole picture. We're talking microbiologists, engineers, you name it. But here's the most important part. Really, you have to have commitment from management. Because let's be honest, without real resources and authority from the top, a food safety plan is just a piece of paper in a binder. The team needs the power to actually make changes. All right, let's get to the core of the system. This is where we actually start hunting for those risks. Phase 2 is all about the first 3 principles of HACCP. This is the hazard analysis part of the name, the real detective work. So, principle number 1. This is arguably the most important one of all. It's all about foresight, about looking ahead. It's where the team has to conduct a full-on hazard analysis. This means brainstorming and listing every single potential hazard you can think of at every step. And then you have to evaluate them. You ask 2 simple questions. How likely is this to happen? And if it does happen, how bad would it be? Only the really significant risks, the ones that are a real threat, move on to the next step. And when we say hazard, that could be anything really. We're talking biological stuff like salmonella, we're talking chemical things, maybe an undeclared allergen or a bit of cleaning fluid, or it could even be physical, a tiny piece of metal or plastic that fell into the mix. Anything that could cause harm. Okay, so you've got your list of the big, scary hazards. Now what? Well, the next logical question is, where can we stop them? And that right there brings us to principle 2. This is all about finding the exact points in the process where you can step in and prevent or eliminate a hazard. Think of it like finding the key choke points in a system. It's not every step. It's about identifying those few absolutely essential moments where you have the power to stop a hazard dead in its tracks. And those are your critical control points, or CCPs.
Yeah, a CCP is basically a make or break moment for safety. A perfect example that we can all relate to is cooking chicken, right? That step, cooking it to a specific internal temperature, is a CCP because it is essential for killing harmful bacteria like salmonella. It's not optional. It's an absolutely non-negotiable point of control.
And for every single one of those CCPs, you can't have fuzzy rules. You need them to be crystal clear. And that, of course, brings us to principle 3. You have to establish critical limits. This means setting a firm, non-negotiable, science-based boundary for each CCP. It is the literal line in the sand that separates safe from unsafe. There's no gray area, no ambiguity allowed. And these limits have got to be specific and measurable. It's never cook until it looks done. No way. It's cooked to a minimum internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not keep it kind of acidic.
It's maintain a pH below 4.6. See? These are hard numbers, all based on science that leave zero room for guesswork.
So a great plan is useless if it just sits in a binder, right? This final phase, which covers the last 4 principles, is all about turning that plan into a living, breathing system. This is the ongoing watch, the part that runs day in and day out to maintain control.
And these last 4 principles create this perfect feedback loop that keeps the whole system humming. First up, you have to monitor your CCPs. That means constantly watching them to make sure they stay within those critical limits. But what if they don't? Well, that's where corrective actions come in. You need a pre-planned response for what to do when something goes wrong. Then you need verification. This is where you double-check that your plan is actually working through things like audits and testing. And finally, the golden rule of pretty much everything, documentation. Seriously, in food safety, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen. Period.
So, let's zoom out. From this super high-stakes project for NASA all the way to our global food supply chain. What's the real-world impact of HACCP today? Why does the system matter so much?
Oh, the impact is just immense. This systematic, science-based approach has truly become the bedrock of modern food safety. It's trusted by governments all over the world, it's a core requirement for major global standards, and honestly, it's pretty much essential for any country that wants to be a player in the global food trade.
So, here's the bottom line. HACCP isn't just a document that sits on a shelf. It's a whole philosophy. It's a philosophy of prevention. It has fundamentally, and I mean permanently, changed how we produce food. It shifted the entire industry's focus from just finding mistakes to preventing them from ever happening in the first place.
You know, it really makes you think, doesn't it? The next time you sit down for a meal, maybe take a second to consider this incredible, invisible system working behind the scenes. And it makes you wonder, what other complex, protective systems are out there hiding in plain sight, just working tirelessly to keep our world running?